And Africa's quest for universal electricity access takes center stage in Tanzania.
The idea of this compact is a renewed commitment by the African heads of state.
Vice President Shettima inaugurates projects in Lokoja to mark Governor Dodo's one-year anniversary.
Governor Ododo has led a remarkable pace with the launch of the Colgate Dialogue, and now it is up to all of us to support this initiative.
And Nigeria is set to boost the economy through enhanced trade with Switzerland.
Our shared commitment to sustainability drives forward.
And on Good Morning Nigeria today, we shall review the 2025 World Economic Forum, plus how Nile University is advancing education in Nigeria.
All right, the World Economic Forum has come, and of course, it's still making waves. Now we gather that close to 3,000 leaders from over 130 countries across the world gathered in Davos, Switzerland. Victor, quite an event.
Absolutely, Claire. And for 4 days, January 20 to 24, it was all about collaboration for the intelligent age. Now, Nigeria didn't just show up. We made sure to make our voices heard, with Vice President Kashim Shettima leading the charge.
Obviously, of course, with the power-packed delegation. Now, the Vice President's speech really focused on Nigeria's investment potential and how the African Continental Free Trade Area could be a game changer for the economy.
And speaking of takeaways, Claire, there were some key ones from Nigeria's participation: investment opportunities, African economic integration, and sustainable growth. Big themes with big implications.
Absolutely, big implication, especially the Sustainable Development Goals, which encapsulate all countries' priority areas. And Nigeria's presence at the forum also showcased our determination to lead global economic conversations.
Welcome to Good Morning Nigeria. Today we are taking a deep dive into the just concluded World Economic Forum in Davos, where the world's most influential leaders, policymakers, and business moguls converged on the Swiss Alps to tackle issues like climate change and economic inequality.
And hopefully, if we do come out of that dive successfully, we will, of course, be talking about collaboration for the intelligent age, which was the theme for the conference, and it was a game changer. And of course, we will be analyzing the key takeaways and what they mean for Nigeria, for you, and for everyone, and of course, the world and the African continent at large. I am Claire Adelabu Abdul Razak, and it's always a pleasure to have you join us on this program. Good Morning Nigeria, we call it your morning tonic. And that's not all. Later on, we will be taking a look at how, some tertiary institutions here in Nigeria, especially in Abuja, are raising the bar, of course, in enhancing higher education in the country. I am Claire Adelabu Abdul Razak, and of course, with Victor as well.
Yeah, we are talking specifically about Nile University and how it is raising the bar in education, like you put it earlier on. Well, I am Victor Azo. Chukwudi Okoli-Ubaja will join us shortly for the newspaper review. All right, thank you for staying with us. Up next is newspaper review.
All right, time to introduce Chukwudi Okoli-Ubaja, alias Chuckstable.
How are you? I'm not going to go into your transition from one word to another, because the vowel sequence there requires you to say "ukoliubaja." You unite somewhere. One swallows up the other one. It's called absorption. Hello, Victor.
Good morning.
And you can see that I came in today as an Ovasabi Chukudi.
But I will not be tempted to say you are Chooks the boy.
All right,
Claire,
let's begin.
please, God bless you, my dear.
Yes, this
Good morning,
Nigeria.
Claire.
This Nigeria. We're starting with this Nigeria. This Nigeria newspaper. Minimum wage. Civil servants worried over selective implementation as Imo, Sokoto, Akwa Ibom, FCT workers to commence payment in January. Again, the headline, minimum wage, civil servants worried over selective implementation as Imo, Sokoto, Akwa Ibom, FCT workers to commence payment in January. Now, Africa loses $18 billion annually due to conflict. That's according to the African Union. It's on page 9. And of course, we have the story, picture story there. You find the Minister of Information, of course, and orders during the award of Minister of the Year, of course, by This Day newspaper in Lagos yesterday. Of course, you have FCT Minister Nyesom Wike, his wife, Justice Suzette Eberechi Wike, and former governors Ifeanyi Ugwuanyi, Dr. Kezie Ekpeazu, and speakers Rivers House of Assembly, all of them during that award to the minister. And then there are also other stories here. Naiti partners EFCC to recover $6 billion, 66 billion naira owed federal government. Naiti partners EFCC to recover $6 billion, 66 billion naira owed federal government. Victor, back.
All right, and that takes us to the People's Daily. And the last story you read is captioned this way: Reps query Naiti's 32 million naira budget for meals in 2025. As agency moves to recover $6 billion, 66 billion naira from oil sector. And above that story, you have two just falling under the nameplate. Judiciary, the biggest threat to Nigeria's democracy, says Atiku. And you can get details of that story on page 5. And still on page 5, Kano police arrest 3 suspects. Kano police arrest 3 suspects for kidnapping, killing of ex-Gombe permanent secretary. Right, and at the bottom of the People's Daily, Abuja kidnappings remain calm, vigilant, police urge residents. An Enugu tragedy, we must end tanker explosions in Nigeria, says VP Shatima. Court asked to stop Tinubu NAS from sacking Danladi Umar as CCT chair. That's on page 4. And NEDC procures 1.4 billion naira equipment to dredge Alau Dam in Borno. And just before we drop the People's Daily, FG deploys 30 mobile labs, virtual headsets to boost education in Northeast. And that takes us to the leadership, which leads with the headline, Kaduna governor defends negotiation with bandits, declares it's better than losing lives, says only victims' families will understand. ACF, Arewa youths back Uba Sani. Again, 7 farmers killed in Benue. And that story is on page 4. Just above it in a tiny strip, hunger, insecurity threatening Africa's democracy. That's according to Bawumia, Shetima, and Obi, page 25. And above that story, 160 billion naira USSD debt. 5 banks rush to meet disconnection deadline, and you get details on page 7. And looking down to the bottom of the front page, or rather, the right-hand column, PDP crisis, Southeast leaders reject meeting with NWC, page 26. Court asked to stop sacking of CCT chair, page 20. AFCON 2025, Super Eagles to battle Tunisia, Uganda, Tanzania in group stage, page 29. And opposition slams Ododo over 2 projects in 1 year. That's on page 4. Chukwudi.
Quickly, Abubakar Atiku says the judiciary is biggest threat to democracy. Did he say that?
Yes.
Really?
Well, that's what the paper says.
I've not read it, so let's not go speculating. But I would have loved to ask him, for instance, what is the big problem with the People's Democratic Party? And what it would mean for me is to let him consider that through and through we have organizations, units, maybe institutions that have taken a bashing from the way we live our lives in this country. So when we want to correct many of these things happening, it has to be total. That's my own opinion about it, okay? Having said that, you didn't read the bit about Afe Babalola withdrawing case against Arotimi. You didn't do that.
Okay, that's tiny there.
Yes,
okay.
yes. If you give me the privilege of mentioning that, I didn't talk about this all the time it was happening. But now that what nations call rapprochement, but this time it's happening between 2 individuals, while some rapprochement seems to have happened, I want to say that nobody has proved slander or defamation against her. It never went through the entire judicial cycle of hearing out a case and all that. But I would like to say that Farotimi might want to consider how he says what he believes in. It is not what he said, but the way he said it that annoyed me. I listened to him, pronounce some people as guilty when they haven't been to court and all that. Please let the days ahead bring in more civility in the way we talk. He has a job to say what he doesn't believe is right. That's your job, our jobs as journalists.
Chooks, let's
be careful how we say those things. Minimum wage, please, is very important.
Yes, let's make
But we didn't mention, we just had to mention that that settlement follows the intervention of the Oni of Ife.
Yeah, it doesn't matter who brings it about. The important thing is that it has happened. Yes.
Yes, so over to you.
Minimum wage, quickly, please. The tortoise was told, "We are bringing a wife to you next week." He replied, "Mario, next week too far. What of tomorrow?" Now, the tortoise had stayed without a wife for 7 years. Now, 1 week, So what I say to civil servants is, thank God for small mercies. If there is unfairness in implementation, they have a job to speak up. But this country has been a bad way. It's still in a bad way. It's still in the woods. At a point, we were almost using all our earnings in settling interest only, principal untouched. So it's going to take some time to come out. But let me quickly ask. If you ask me, the first people to pay the minimum wage are the National Youth Service Corps members. Don't let those young people take a bad impression about their country into society. If we think, that's where to start from, my opinion.
Okay, I don't know. I don't have any other story.
Well, this one on Kaduna governor negotiating with bandits, you have people on both sides. Those who say, why should you negotiate with bandits, with criminals? And those who say, look, and the governor says only the families of those that are taken will understand.
If they are saying, why are you negotiating with bandits when they are not showing remorse, I will listen to that. Otherwise, I'll tell you that Mandela came out of prison and told South Africans, forgive and forget. I was a newscaster when Sebokeng, Shabil massacre, the rest of them all happened. There was the instance of a woman who was crawling through grass with some of her entrails coming out, that's a big gory, after being shot by South African police. Yet this man came out. Muslims and Christians, which we largely are, should remember that forgiveness at the end of the day. So if they show repentance, bring them in, please.
But I think it depends on what the negotiation is about. If it is about giving money, paying ransom, I think that's why the people on the other side are there.
You are talking procedural things now. I am talking endpoint, matters at the end of the day.
Chukwudi, just before you go,
I thought you were going to say
2025
Pastor
AFCON.
Chukwudi or Imam Chukwudi.
No, just one in 60 seconds.
Okay.
AFCON 2025. Super Eagles drawn in Group C to face Tanzania, Uganda, and Tunisia. Should we be giving us a breath of relief?
For the arrangement of the match or for your certainty that you will win the match? Which of them?
Well, it looks better for us.
By now, Claire, you should know that I'm a strong advocate of green, white, green. But if they are not going to show me Shego Degbami, Christian Chukwu, Christian Madu, call me old-fashioned. Those were people who held the green, white, green up into the sky.
No, Chukwudi, that way we've got we've got some very
sports
talented.
administration in Nigeria has to improve.
We've got some talented players. They may be individual players, but we've got a squad, a
And the
beautiful
Monaco
squad.
Well,
and we only hope that the new coach.
All eyes on the new coach.
Surely, yes. All eyes on the new coach.
And his boys.
All right, welcome back. And let me quickly begin our introductions. And of course, we have right here with us Professor Ken Ife, who is President, Institute of Professional Economists, and also a development economist, I should also add. He's right here with us. Thank you very much, Professor Ife.
Thank you for having me.
For joining us. And also here with us is great Akokite, Dr. Niyi Akinshiju, Chairman, Independent Media and Policy Initiative, and is also an investment analyst. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Good morning, Nigeria.
All right, and joining us from our Kaduna studio is Yushao Ango, Professor of Finance and Entrepreneurship, who is currently Deputy Vice Chancellor Academics at the Kaduna State University. Always a pleasure to welcome you to Good Morning Nigeria, Prof.
Good morning, Nigerians.
Go ahead.
All right, let's begin from the studio. Let me begin with Professor Ken Ife. And I'm just imagining how the outcomes of the 2025 World Economic Forum will impact Nigeria's economic development goals, and what opportunities arise from the forum's focus on collaboration and innovation, Prof.
Quite a lot, actually, and we are very well represented. We have so many ministers there that tie into various aspects of the agenda of the World Conference. But I think there were two reports that underpinned the Davos. One was a global report that looked at the global macroeconomic forecast looking forward to 2025. And they looked at the fiscal to say what the directions were going to be. Obviously, they were looking at loose fiscal, and then obviously starting from America and UK, but ending with Sub-Saharan Africa. They looked at inflation, thinking it would trend down, starting from US and EU, and then ending with South Africa, SSA. So we are at the bottom part of those two. They also looked at early other macroeconomic variables. But that report came at the bottom later on and looked holistically at America to say what are the major things that are going to happen in the American economy. They looked at wage increases, they looked at inflation, they looked at, and then that was underpinned by the president coming in to give his own address. And what he said obviously collaborated with that report actually projected. Then there's a second report which is by Oxfam that looked at the possibility that 5 new trillionaires will come out earlier than was expected. But then ended up saying that 60% of their wealth are generational wealth and cronyism and all that stuff. And quite significantly, that same report was transposed to Nigerian own version of their report, looking at the 4 billionaires in Nigeria, Dangote, and they looked at them and then concluded along the same line, which I didn't quite accept. So by and large, this is the trust of the. Then we have ministers that actually brought something that made us feel like, well, you had Okonjo-Iweala, obviously not a minister, but she actually talked a lot more on global cooperation from trade perspective. But we had the vice president, which is leading charge. Then we had the minister for trade and industry hammering on digital trade. And then you have the minister for digital economy talking more about digital infrastructure and the use, more prevalent use of AI and then building out literacy. So we've got all that. Then you have the health minister that was, coming out with lots of initiatives and it's getting traction. So there are lots of things that we connected with. And we had the minister that gave us very good representation.
All right, Prof. Thank you. I will take another route, with Nii. I think when we, hosted, the economic summit some years back, I think it was Julian Robert or so, that made a remarkable, statement for me, and he said, Africa is on the move. But here's the catch, that Africa is not just on the move, but moving forward. And then someone also said that, look, the essence of the forum is to collaborate and to ensure that investment is diversified, across nations and all that. Between then, I think that was about 2014 or thereabout. Between then and now, Nigeria attended another summit. What do you think WEP seeks to strengthen, or has strengthened, or has contributed to us?
Oh, well, thank you for that. A talk shop will always be a talk shop. The World Economic Forum, it's actually a gathering of leaders of thought across the world, political leaders, leaders of thought and all that. It is not as if it has the power of enforcement. It's about exchanging and, of course, cross-fertilizing ideas. And to a large extent, it provides the forum for a global stage for amplification of what is happening in the domestic economy for respective countries. This particular 2025 provide Nigeria and Africa a big stage to announce the new Nigerian economic space, or the new Nigerian philosophy, as it were. The vice president who led the Nigerian delegation, was near boastful in announcing to the world that Nigeria is ready for business based on the new economic paradigm that defines the Nigerian economic space. We are more or less unfettered from what used to hold us historically, especially with the flagship policies deployed by the administration. That's the removal of fuel subsidy and the harmonization of forex markets. So to a large extent, the country, Nigeria, had an opportunity to announce these policies and, of course, update the global leadership that this much we have been able to achieve. And that, of course, these policies had been a major concern, historical concern for international institutions, especially multilateral institutions, IMF, World Bank, and all that. I don't think I was 16 years old when I've been hearing the IMF always express concern about our subsidies and all that, and that there's a need for us to redefine and, of course, to refocus where would actually be subsidizing. And, of course, for me, that also find a tally in the artificial and digital economy that was also part of the agenda adopted, at the forum. There's a talk of the potentialities of Nigeria or Nigerians filling the gap, the personnel gap because of our demography. We have a population that is indigenous to or native to digital economy, and we're talking of a population of about more than 60% of young people, and if India and we all know that India had become a major power bloc in the digital world. It's principally driven by its young people, you know, and we have such a kind of people or classification of people in Nigeria. And already we have records of possible companies, you know, that have potentials and references. I take pride anywhere I go around the world to say that the Nigerian economy has about 4 unicorns, you know, in Africa. In the country, 4 unicorns. That means you have 4 entities that could act that had been valuated at more than $1 billion, you know, Flutterwaves and co. Now, it's a reference for so many younger people. And we see that the government, too, is doing so much to encourage. In fact, the digital economy concept itself is a philosophy by government to create that ecosystem, you know. And that is one. Then globally, I mean, across the continent, Africa also was able to beat up the drums of the African continental free trade area. And that excited me. We saw for the first time African countries coming together to talk about the vision of the size of the African continent economy in 2050 at 29 trillion naira. In fact, when the talk of the AFCTA was going on, this vision was not linked properly. And when I saw the application of that vision, I said, this is proper. This is the global south, part of the global south talking, you know, ventilating itself. Especially when you background it with what Trump, you know, has decided to create an agenda around. The first thing he did was to stop foreign aids. And Africa had always been the beneficiary, or thought to be the major beneficiaries of foreign aid. So now we are saying, Africa is saying, we'll come together. If you support us, okay, but we have enough resources to exploit, and of course, to drive our own economy. If we are able to drive a 29 trillion economy in the next 25 years, it will be a huge footprint for the African person on the global stage.
If you may, what were the specific investment opportunities pitched by Nigeria at the 2025 WEF, and how might they align with the country's national development priorities?
I think the talk around the digital economy was huge, and there was this commitment that more Nigerians will be focused at linking up with global economic opportunity, digital economic opportunities. And I think there was this one that was very, very, very peculiar to me, because it's not every time you get to hear about it. Maternal health, between the forum and Nigeria. And of course, I find it rather interesting because, again, we have been able, the health ministry here had been able to accomplish this free C-session. It shows that the government, the Nigerian government, as it were, is evolving into a more humane, more compassionate entity. Over time, there has been a major concern over maternal health. And we also know that the cesarean section option had always been expensive. So to have government intervene along that line and also escalate this to the global level shows that there's compassion. So we are not just talking about hard sell, demand and supply curves meeting at a point. We are talking about human being. We are socializing the economic space, which to me is impressive.
And quite interesting that you brought up the issue of the maternal health agreement signed between WEP and Nigeria. And the Minister of Health, Professor Patti, was emphatic on what, he hopes to achieve within it, to be able to address the out-of-pocket of women in all the 74 local government areas. And I just want to bring in Professor Ife, because a lot of people now believe that, you know, the gathering in Davos is now, you know, impacting on the way investors now see, you know, the investment space. Many of them are now beginning to migrate into what they call the second-tier cities, and of course exploring new skills and new opportunities that the markets bring. Is Nigeria one of those? Is Nigeria one of those areas?
Of course. Of course. I mean, if you look at the Minister for Health, for example, we got this $1.57 billion health program from World Bank. And I've never liked any program more than that, because this is the first time I'm seeing a program that is going to actually pin government down to delivering services and monitoring it with performance indicators. So when you look at the details, you see, for example, not only what it does on health and on water and sanitation and all that, but actually promoting investment into the health sector. So when you now see the minister going out, he's now talking to investors. Come and invest in our health sector. It means look at insurance, health insurance. Health insurance is what funds health in America, in the UK. For example, it's the health insurance that builds hospitals. And you know we have $3 billion deficit, what you call the $3 billion health tourism. Now, this is where you begin to build the necessary infrastructure to ensure that you can attract private sector in building. So that is that. And also, of course, we're also looking at the metrics. Now, you know, when you borrow money and you cannot see where that money goes, it creates even more problem for the country. But here you can see where government delivery of primary health and services are being monitored by performance indicators. And those indicators are some of those global health details that we, you know, the social indicators like HMI, that is the what do you call it, UNDP Human Development Index, World Bank Human Capital Index. These are indices that show Nigeria to be boarding last in all of this created poverty index. So you just look at those index, but now you are having ways in which they can monitor you and say, just like the work that that was done on ease of doing business. You saw Nigeria move up 20 points on the indices. We are now having that happen in health. So, and private sector like to respond to things where you can measure results, and then where you can see that their investment will be increased. I think that is one good thing that was coming through.
And I like it when I read, you know, the speeches of Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, and she speaks, you know, to the core issues that, you know, would enhance, you know, our trading profile, our economy. I mean, as president of the WTO, and she has consistently talked about, you know, the way we carry out our reforms, that we must have concrete platform to execute the reforms that are necessary to attract these investors.
Absolutely.
Have you seen this?
Well, I've just described the situation
Yes.
in health. But also, if you move on to ICT and digital economy, I mean, you've got that there. You've seen programs that are catching them young, migrating the skills, making sure that they don't have to go to America or UK. They stay here, develop those skills, and use these skills to deliver services abroad. You can actually see where they are going with this. So I'm beginning to see a lot of that. And then you've seen the HMITI, the Ministry of the Trade is talking more now about digital trade as a way Nigeria will enter into the AFCTA delivery system. And when you talk in that way, then it resonates with the private sector, because you are looking at ways and means rather than talk. You know. So I think we are beginning to press the right buttons, and we are beginning to show up to be realistic in calling private sector interest in what we are doing.
All right, thank you, Prof. Dr. Akinshiju, I'm wondering how soon you think Nigeria can begin to see the dividends, however little, however, you know, trickling they might be, the dividends of its participation at the WEF 2025? And in what areas might those be?
Yeah, well, one, it's. I think the most important thing is that it always availed Nigeria, the opportunity to market itself. But again, on what are the punchline, for that marketing? What are the unique selling points, the USP, for the marketing? This is where we had issues. The global community had always treated us with much disdain and suspicion, believing that our economic paradigm is not exactly too friendly, to even private investments. Well, now we went to Davos 2025 with a new package, with a new economic personality. Here we are open for business. We are opening up our economic space for market forces, and that basically is what private investors understand. Historically, we had had a limitation in terms of FDI drive, foreign direct investment drive. Yes, when it talks of portfolio investment, over the last few years, we have seen some credible improvements, especially with the management of our NPRs and all that. But the truth of the matter is, we've lacked the influx of the real kind of fund we need, the foreign direct investment that comes into equity, that comes into partnership, productive partnership, and all that. Now, it is based on this kind of the new paradigm that we are talking about. We are no longer interested in capital control, for instance. We are no longer interested in government allocating resources, for users of forex and all that. We are saving so much from subsidy. Rather than subsidize consumption, we want to subsidize social development, social index, education, health, and all that. Now, to the average private investor, these are understandable communication, that he or she can relate with, and of course can project as, okay, this is a strong template for profit making. So if a jurisdiction that was known for capital control is now saying, come in, the market will determine your access to whatever you brought in. When you bring in money, when you bring in your foreign exchange, you are free to take it out without any form of restriction. It's news, it's good news. So to a large extent, we have been able to say this to a large population of investors. And I think whatever the case may be, there's going to be a vertical and horizontal linkages with the Nigerian economy and, of course, with the African larger economy. If you are talking about the African free trade area, we are not just talking about black African participants. We will see foreign investors that will want to invest in any African jurisdiction, and Nigeria being one, so as to be able to, of course, to take advantage of the free trade area. And then, of course, there was a lot of talk around our tax bill, our coming tax bill. No private investor would hear or read the content of that tax bill that would not be attracted to this jurisdiction. So we expect larger flow, of FDIs into the economy. And we have always been praying, those of us that have been following the economy, we have always been praying that it is when you have this particular kind of inflows into the economy that you can actually have prosperity start taking roots in the Nigerian economy.
Let's also not overlook the impact of inflation, on whatever success may happen. At the moment, we're having to deal with inflation, and inflation was also one of the top, issues discussed. And almost all those who participated in that annual, discussion were impacted one way or the other by inflation. And I was particularly intrigued by the question the moderator asked and the response by one of the participants. The moderator asked, have you been able to put inflation into the bottle? And one of the participants, to whom that question was directed, he said, look, this is the bottle, this is the gin or genie. You know, the head of the genie is inside the bottle. The body is inside the bottle, but the legs are outside, you know, probably trapped. So I should also ask, have we been able to bottle inflation, to be able to leverage all of, you know, these very fantastic, you know, deals that our leaders are making, especially from Davos?
Well, I think there are, from our last figures, there are indications that we are bottling the genie, as it were, you know. The CBN policies are working. I can see an obvious relationship between the fiscal and the monetary policy authorities. And to a large extent, the last figure showed that even the food inflation that had been a major concern, it was falling.
It's falling, yes, I must confess.
Yes, and that the core inflation, which usually had been the conservative aspect of the basket, is the one that actually rose. And rose particularly because of the peculiarity of December, you know, in our calendar, with more money, more demands, and all that. And of course, that pushed it a bit. So we have also seen we saw a marginal increase in inflation rates in December 2024. So to a large extent, there's a consensus that inflation rate will start falling. And what is even more practical for me was the declaration.
So the head is already inside the bottle?
I'm very sure we're going to push it inside. And of course, because the president...
Before you go to Kaduna, yes, Professor Ife, what do you think? Is inflation trapped?
I like to call it stagflation, because Nigeria has the most complicated form of inflation. Usually, in most advanced countries, it is a linear relationship. People always look at money supply, or they are looking at structural inflation. In Nigeria, it's far more complicated. That's why today you think you've got it, tomorrow it's out of the bottle.
It's out of the bottle.
But generally speaking, even though there will still be a small rise from February to March, but it will begin to moderate from March and then start coming down around July, August. That's when it will start coming. There's nothing near 15%, maybe about 25, 26%. But it's a very tough call, because you look at the four major causes of inflation, they're all active in Nigeria. Imported inflation, cost-push inflation, demand pull inflation, and then cross-border demand pull inflation because of our exchange rate. So it's very, very complicated stuff.
All right.
But there's a handle on it.
All right. Thank you very much, Prof. Let's now get to Kaduna, where we have Professor Yushao Ango. Prof, thank you very much for your patience. I want to start by asking you what your reading is, your assessment of how global leaders envision international cooperation evolving in 2025, particularly in the face of rising nationalism and protectionism.
Very much. I was wondering whether you have forgotten about me here. Well, the Davos has given us an indication of more or less what the global economy is going to look like. I watched and listened attentively to the various submissions, especially on the issue of inflation. So much has also been said, for example, about the new U.S. government and their various policies and how that will impact on the global economy. Like Nii said, even at the beginning, this is a talk show, more or less. It was an opportunity for everybody to express themselves. And based on what we have seen or we have heard, and based on what we have presented, we remain positive that Nigeria has made a good showing, just to make a good impression, more or less, to the global economy. In addition, we have to be conscious of the fact that things are moving fast, and especially the new U.S. government is coming up with a number of policies that right from the beginning, he hit the ground running, more or less. Many of these policies will have significant impact on us, whether we like it or not. Some of them positively, some of them probably not so positively. Now, for example, the issue, everybody knows about their policies pertaining to the issue of oil pricing. He wants to reduce oil pricing by increasing domestic production. We know we have made our own projections here in Nigeria based on the recent budget. Whether that will hold or not is another issue. Then, again, like has been said, the most important thing is that Nigeria has made a very beautiful outing, and I think we are positive that the outcome will be good, especially looking at making the market more attractive, making ease of doing business in Nigeria obvious and clear to every one of us. I think the major opportunity will be the African continental free trade area, and I think for us in Nigeria, what we need to do more is to key in, and by keying in, yes, I agree with the fact that a lot of is happening in terms of trading digitally. So much is happening, but I think physical infrastructure also has to come in so that to complement and make that happen. I'm not so positive. I didn't like the idea that we're looking at 29 trillion economy, but by the year 2050, whereas maybe Asia's economy is at 41 trillion already as at 2 years ago. So I hope, I know it will be a quantum leap for Africa, but I hope it will be a much bigger leap for all of us. And especially, I also know that the president particularly want to move the economy, Nigeria's economy, to 1 trillion. And I think then, in that case, whatever the projection is for 29 trillion by 2050, Nigeria should envisage and work towards making the best of it.
Trillion by 2050, and that Nigeria should make the best of it. It just takes my mind to what, of course, transpired. We're told that the Western, developed countries are having more of a large, aging population. Of course, which is to our advantage. You talked about that demographic, advantage. How can we leverage that, given that we are also projecting, the African free continental area, digital transformation and all that? What more can we do to leverage this, window that has been opened onto Africa and especially Nigeria?
What happened to India can happen to Nigeria. India is probably the largest in population today, but despite that, they were focused on education, on qualitative education. We have had a situation in the 80s, some of us were taught by Indians, in Nigeria here. So what we need to do basically is to really invest in education and up-to-date education, and to make provide skills, especially digital skills to the young ones. Ni has said it, we have a lot of them, and even the Vice President said it. This is Nigeria with 230, 240 million probably, but with a density of 220 million, number of active lines in Nigeria, and with about 163 million Nigerians, being active on the internet and all that. Now, this is a Nigeria that can easily key in to the global economy. What we need to do is to invest on skills, and skills for these young ones, and serious skills. Then the gaps that we're likely going to see will be filled by Nigerians. Even as we speak today, the quantum of money that comes into Nigeria, in terms of diaspora remittances is huge. That probably is what will sustain Nigeria by 2030, 2040, 2050. So basically, investment in those skills and in knowledge and economy is what will drive that. And I believe, like you have said correctly, there is a gap, and that gap is growing. And instead of us to be reducing, we're growing in population. The growth can be a blessing if we invest wisely in developing the skills of the young ones.
All right, Prof, let me stay with you before we give you a breather. I'm wondering what role emerging technologies will play in all of this. Talking about AI, blockchain, what role would they play in 2025 in the economy that will evolve? And if you look only recently, China already threw the challenge with DeepSeek rivaling ChatGPT, doing the same thing with less cost. It's cheaper, and it's going to take less data.
I believe AI has come to stay. And I also am happy to say that I believe Nigeria is up to the task. Nigerians have proven themselves everywhere, in terms of technology. Ni also again mentioned it and mentioned some of the unicorns that are coming up, from Nigeria. I think, this is the future, so there is no alternative. Yes, we have missed the train in terms of industrial revolution at certain stages, but we can key into this while we are trying to make up in the others. And I believe Nigeria has what it takes in terms of population, in terms of skills, in terms of the ability of Nigerians, which globally has been acclaimed and accepted. I think this is where to go. AI has come to stay. The 4.0 revolution is taking effect, and Nigeria has keyed in. And I believe more Nigerians should be encouraged to key into this so that we catch up with the global economy, while, of course, working on the basics, trying to make the productive economy also work. Because for us, we cannot afford to just limit ourselves to the surface. But I believe we are in a situation, we have the space, we have the capacity, and I think with a little encouragement and with dedication and focus, especially from our various IT-related infrastructure and agencies, to promote this, I think we can get there, inshallah.
Let's come back to the studio again, Niyi. We're looking at, both the opportunities that Davos presented and, the realities at home and how we can make that translate into, economic growth and prosperity for Nigeria against, the showcasing that we made in Davos. And one area that Minister of Finance, Wale Edo, stoked was the issue of trust and transparency in government, public trust in government in terms of utilization of funds, in terms of the dividends of democracy and all that. Do you think that, how do you evaluate, efforts to rebuild, public trust in government and how this, can translate to, kickstart?
Yeah, well, it's trust had been a major a major albatross, on government relationship with the people in Nigeria, and that's the truth. One don't also forget that we're actually coming from a background of distrust, especially under the administration of different military administration. That by the nature of those administrations, there had to be a lot of deception, between government and people relationship. So it's we had a carryover of that into the democratic era. But the good thing about democracy is that inherent in democracy is trust. And that the people, the government must be accountable to the people. All right,
Niyi, I'm afraid I have to interject now.
All right.
I'm told that we're having signals from Dar es Salaam, Tanzania, where President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, of course, is attending, the two-day summit organized by the Tanzanian government, the African Union, there he is. That's our President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, of course, going to attend the summit, which is captioned 300, Mission 300. And of course, the mission is, we're here. He's been received by Hassan. I'm trying to get her name correct. Simia Salihu Hassan. Yes, Salihu Hassan. She's been
President of Tanzania.
Yes, of course. And our president has been briefed by the president, and they walk off the stage. All right, that's the Africa Heads of State Energy Summit holding in Tanzania, and the mission is to electrify 300 million Africans by the year 2030. And Nigeria is making a very significant presence. Again, this is Mr. President. Let's pause a while and take a listen. President in there for a closed-door meeting, which is part of what we are, having a conversation here. Much later, we will, Niyi and Prof will also look at, the outcome of this, conversation in Tanzania. It's quite ambitious, to find 300 million Africans, by the year 2030. Victor,
Yes, of course, in all of this, energy also features prominently. Niyi was, rounding off his thoughts earlier.
I'm sorry.
But in all of this, now that we've taken that a bit of shift to energy, where does energy feature in all that we are talking about?
In everything.
It's
energy
crucial. But I'm saying
is a pivot.
The improvements that we seek in that sector, are we seeing it? Is there light at the end of are we seeing any light at the end of the tunnel?
Well, we are hopeful because for the first time in a long while, we are seeing new transmission lines. We are seeing new transmission substations. The Eco Disco, for instance, had just been bought over, by a conglomerate of energy companies that had actually established a precedent, in the industry, managing Shiroro dams, Kwara dams, and all that. These are practitioners, industry practitioners. Unlike when we first started this journey, privatization of the power sector, for instance, when most of the people that secured those companies were neophytes, more or less, and you couldn't even identify their interest in the industry. So we are seeing that secondary transmutation of the industry, as it were. So we expect that with the injection of new industry players, we would have a more aligned productivity, in that sector. And we are also seeing increase in power generation. The headache has been the distribution, but first even have that generation. So we are breaking 6,000, 7,000. When at the time we were just limited to 4,000. So we needed to just enhance the capacity of the distribution companies to scale up. So a coal would scale up. We expect Abuja to scale up, and of course, Ibadan already, is also open to new investments because that is also under receivership. So I think it will improve.
All right, then. There's also need for improvement in government-private sector partnership,
of course.
And of course the enabling enabling platform for the private sector to thrive. But let's bring Professor Angu, and I'm just wondering. Usually, the problem that investment analysts like yourself would always point out after all said and done, and all the shuttles to Davos, to Tanzania, and wherever, is what happens after the event. How do we follow up? What does government do with all the MOUs, with all the deals, and how does government sustain or retain the confidence that investors in those events have expressed?
Sincerely, it's a major concern. Many a times, agreements will be reached with investors, with other people who want to invest in our economy, and many a times you find that there are some hurdles that are still there. Of course, there is a lot of work that has been going on pertaining to the ease of doing business in Nigeria, and I think that is where government needs to focus on. We need to focus on delivering, on working our talk, making sure that whatever we agree to, we have the mechanisms, that will make sure that that is implemented. Naturally, Nigeria is a market that people should be attracted to. Given our population, given our resource, potential, I think, many investors will want to come into Nigeria. What we need to do is to get our acts right, and I think that is very, very important. Secondly, we need to know what are our major priorities. Let us focus on those. Let us be serious. Let us be seen by everybody as a serious partner, whoever comes to us. We know some smaller countries in Africa here that are being respected simply because of the, if you like, the way they carry themselves, the way they have projected themselves, to the world. I think we need to do that. We need to be serious. We need to also, as well, try to have some level of patriotism. Let us like our country. Let us protect whatever we do, whatever agreement we go into it in such a way that the interest of the country is uppermost. We have seen many of these issues. Like, for example, if you remember, the Mambila hydroelectricity, this and that. We have quite a number of some such initiatives. But the way we package them in such a way that we leave a lot of lacuna, so that some external people can take advantage of it. And before you know it, you hear that we have been taken to this court or that court in UK or other, and then they are charging Nigeria, or that making Nigeria to pay this or that, simply because we have not done the right thing in negotiation, and we have not done the right thing in packaging, and we have not done the right thing in ensuring that the interest of the country is what is uppermost in whatever we do. I think whatever we come to do, we should package it in such a way that the global, the investors themselves will know that we are serious. And I think this energy sector, especially, is one area that we need to give attention to. I'm not very much optimistic because, maybe in Abuja and Lagos things are working very well. In Kaduna here, energy is not as much as we want to see it. So we want to see a lot more investment, small investment, rather than the ones that will involve, transmitting from one long location to another. Perhaps mini grids will be better, so that people will be served better. The more we package it, the better we package it, and the more, consideration we give to Nigerian interests, the better for the future of the country.
Professor Ango, thank you very much. Let's quickly take the last couple of minutes to get to Professor Ken Ife and probably Ndi Akeshiju. Yeah. And in your opinion, Prof, is Africa ready to play a significant role in economic outcomes, global economic outcomes, that is, in 2025?
Nigeria and Africa are actually showing great signs of readiness. You see, the same PricewaterhouseCoopers analysis that pointed at $29 trillion for Africa actually said Nigeria will be $6.4 trillion around the same 2050. So it's not 1 trillion, it's actually 6.4 trillion. That is the projection of Nigeria at the same time as Africa is aiming at 29 trillion. And I have to tell you this, that the major challenge that we have in our economy is to diversify our economy. Mm-hmm. And there are two routes to diversifying our economy. One is bringing the natural resources God has given to us, solid minerals, 44, oil, gas, all of that, into a more productive activity that's adding value to it. You cannot move there without power. Power is the main agenda. But we say that in that power agenda, you have to move power to the mass market. Mass market means get private sector, hand it over to the private sector, and in bites. Because if it is mini grid or micro grid or individual, hand it over to bring power to the mass market. And a lot of things are happening. You've seen state governments are now being enabled to enter into the distribution, just like Enugu State and federal government, Lagos State. Other states are coming in. That's a major step forward. But the second one is human resource, because as you look at material resource development, you look at human resource development, a lot has been said about it, which is digital economy, to get focus on our youth and get our youth to be more productive. Now, that is the way to, because it's the digital worker that will define and redefine Nigerian economy for the future.
Prof, thank you. Let's take just 16 more seconds to Nii. And, they say that in all of these trade alignments and collaboration, there's nations, that align with, that is everybody's friend, that makes the greatest impact.
Yeah.
And fortunately for us, Nigeria is everybody's friend, and we are also friend to China. And we hear that China has probably one of the lowest inflation, 0.1 from 0.2 in November last year. So what is it that China is doing that we can leverage from?
It's simply productivity. It's enhanced productivity, and it involves everything in between, cheaper cost of production, cheaper labor. It has a history, of cheap labor over time, so much that it became the manufacturing hub of the global manufacturing hub. So to a large extent, we also have these potentials, in country. It's just about enhancing them. We have a relatively cheap labor base. Again, because to a large extent, the federal government and perhaps the state government are training Nigerians at a cheap rate. You can go through a 5-year period of PhD with less than $1 million.
But China is also prioritizing its area of competitive advantage,
yes.
And we are just everywhere. We are going,
It's the same thing. There is, for me now, the philosophy at this moment is education, is health, and you have policies and specialized fund targeted at that segment of the population. So to a large extent, this would have a cascading effect, on whatever may be our production cost of production going forward. Proverbs talked about the liberalization or the democratization of regulation of power. Taking that to the states. And because you took that to the state, you are opening the space more for people, We are also riding a strong momentum on renewable energy, which is supposed to be the future, So to a large extent, we are able to produce that at a cheaper rate. Now the major cause of high cost of living that we have complained about had been rate of foreign exchange and all that. We have seen our reality. It cannot be worse than what we have now.
All right. Dr. Niyi Akinsinjo, thank you. I gave you 60 seconds. You've taken more than that. But all the same, thank you.
I won't land on the 50 seconds.
Thank you for the points that you have given us. Dr. Niyi Akinsinjo is Chairman, Independent Media and Policy Initiative, and also an investment analyst. Once again, we appreciate your contribution. Let me also appreciate here in the studio, Professor Kenife, who is, of course, President, Institute of Professional Economists and a development economist as well. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
And Professor Yushao Ango, Professor of Finance and Entrepreneurship, and of course, he joined us from our studio in Kaduna. Prof, it's good to see you. I haven't seen you in a while.
Very much. It's my pleasure too. Thank you.
You're watching Good Morning Nigeria. Don't go away. We have a second leg coming up shortly.
All right. Thank you for staying with us. Nile University is a private multidisciplinary university established in 2009 and located in Abuja, Nigeria. Nile University is committed to building future generations of professionals and leaders who can thrive and positively impact the African continent by leveraging academic innovation, state-of-the-art facilities, and a talented team of faculty and staff.
All right, so the university currently has 8 faculties: health sciences, law, engineering, computing, science, arts and social sciences. There's also management sciences, environmental sciences, and a school of postgraduate studies, offering over 40 undergraduate programs and more than 50 postgraduate programs. Now that you know, let me welcome someone who will give us more details about the Nile University and how it's advancing education in Nigeria. And we are being joined by none other than the Vice Chancellor of the university, of course, Professor Dele Dogo Of course, your surname is Fan what?
Surname is Dogo.
That's
Dogo.
professional.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much for joining us. I saw something here and I was wondering.
Yes.
Yes, thank you very much for joining us, Prof. So when I heard, or whenever I hear Nile University, the first thing that comes to my mind is River Nile, in Egypt, we all know. So tell us about Nile University. What makes it tick?
Thank you so much for having me on your studio this morning. And good morning, all Nigerians. I want to start by appreciating all Nigerians who are investing in the future of their children by sending them to Nile University. Nile University of Nigeria was initially Nile Turkish, Nigerian Turkish Nile University when it was started by the Turkish group in 2009. It thereafter evolved into Nile University of Nigeria. And Nile University of Nigeria started with just about 100 students in 2009. And over the years, we've grown to be one of the fastest growing private universities here in Nigeria. This actually was actualized by the onboarding of the Honoris United Universities. For our viewers, Honoris United Universities is the largest private higher institution network on the African continent. We have universities in 10 countries, and we are currently playing host to over 100,000 students in over 75 campuses. Nile University is special in the sense that it intends to provide high-quality education to Nigeria and Nigerians right here in Nigeria. Our core values are to make sure that we use technology to drive education that will impact on the African continent. That is why the motto of Honoris United Universities is education for impact. When we say impact, we are talking of our graduates representing us anywhere in the world in a way and manner that is expected, well-trained and motivated to deliver, especially in the 21st century. For those of us who have watched keenly world evolution, especially in economic cycles, will agree that Africa missed out in the first industrial revolution, we missed out in the second, we missed out in the third, and Africa must be relevant in the fourth industrial revolution. And that's why we are investing heavily in technology-driven learning to ensure that our graduates meet up with all the demands of both industry and public service.
And that's why I'm going to be asking, what are the areas of specialty for Nile University? Or do you cover everything?
Yes, we are a multidisciplinary university. We have the College of Health Sciences currently providing one of the best medical graduates in the country. In fact, we are one of the first institutions to be accredited by the Medical and Dental Council to provide an enrollment quota of 200 right now. For you to be given such a quota by a regulatory body, it means that you have put in place the right infrastructure, you have the right human resources and talents to drive this learning. We have invested so heavily, especially in the College of Health Sciences. We've created the first STEM lab in the country, in Nile University. We right now have developed the first very high definition medical simulation to drive learning and teaching. And we'll continue to innovate along that line. In computing, for instance, we have all the courses required to drive learning. Currently, we are introducing AI as one of the courses, in addition to many other courses, including data science. In engineering, the amount of innovation our students have created have earned the attention of Koren. In fact, most often, all those who are winners of these awards from the regulators come from Nile University. In fact, we have other courses in environmental sciences, we have courses in sciences, we have courses in management sciences, and we also have courses in arts and social sciences. Incidentally, we've just introduced multimedia and film.
I was going to ask.
In
addition to BSc broadcasting.
Okay,
and
that's interesting.
Exactly. And in fact, we are moving beyond that to animation. So all these things we believe will create the necessary environment for graduates of Nile University in these courses to thrive and, in fact, become employers of labor.
Okay, let's quickly look at, I mean, all the qualities that you have given us in terms of your super and suprastructure. Usually a private university, that that prides itself with this kind of robust, structures, usually not within reach or reserved for a certain class of students. I mean, my cameramen here, if the children want to, get admission into Nile University, for instance, how accessible is it for them? And secondly, sir, you may also want to take this question. Recently, we had a conversation, in our meeting about how robust, universities or tertiary institutions in Nigeria, are embracing e-learning. We understand that some private universities are doing well. How is your university, or is your university also embracing e-learning?
Well, let me start by saying that Nile University of Nigeria is one university that intends to be not only accessible, but affordable. And if you compare our tuition with other institutions, given the kind of programs and offerings we do here in Nigeria, I think Nile University will rate as the cheapest.
What's your tuition per semester?
Well, it ranges from about 2.8 to 5.7 for medicine. And I want to tell you that these are tuition fees that have subsisted for over, let me say, 10 years without change.
How do you do that?
Well,
in the face of inflation and
exactly. So that is because we are education for impact. Nile University strives to make sure that education, despite the economic hardship, remains accessible. If we limit quality education to only those who can have, then we'll have a demography or cohort of people that will be developed inappropriately, so to say. So our intention is to make sure that we are creative, we are innovative in our offerings so that we make education accessible. Accessible not only as physical education. In fact, right now, we have Nile Online, and we've gotten the license for digital license from NUC that will allow us to put up courses online, and perhaps that will also support the course. But beyond that, we try to reach every facet of life by making education accessible to our executives in office, by making education accessible to our students who want to study at home, by making education accessible to even those who are outside the country, by making sure we put in the right infrastructure that will drive learning and teaching. I think I can tell you that Nile University has the best infrastructure to deliver online learning for now. Our students
is payment I was going to ask if payment is flexible, so that those who cannot afford bulk payment, have an ease of payment structure.
We always have a way of making sure that payment can be made flexible, and we continue to make sure that our students are able to register and continue their education despite the hardship. Like I said, we are very creative and innovative, and in doing so, we have earned the confidence of the public. We have earned the confidence of those who choose to invest in our educational system. And I want to tell you that for now, we are evolving the best business school in Nile University. In fact, we've created executive education wing that currently actually we have a lot of people enrolled in executive MBA, for instance. And this has made it easy for chief executives to take time off in their office and still get access to what we call customized education to meet the demands of those who are already very engaged, very busy, and cannot attend to physical education because of the demand of having to move up and down. And for us to get that one done, we have entered into collaboration with so many high-tech companies to ensure that we drive this with ease. And in fact, even people outside the country can access our digital education, executive education. And we have, in doing that...
Is this for real? Is this for real?
Yeah. Anything you see in Nile is life. And we are committed to do things and do it right. We are investing heavily in infrastructure and to create the best learning environment in the country.
How much of the investment goes into postgraduate studies? How many, what kind of programs do you have at the postgraduate level?
In fact, currently, we have over 50 different postgraduate programs, ranging from MBA to Masters in Public Health, MSc in Petroleum and Gas, PhD in Petroleum and Gas, and almost all the kind of courses you expect in a multidisciplinary education currently exist there. And we have the talents and the manpower to drive world-class learning. In fact, if you work in there, in the STEM lab alone have over 22 laboratories in one building. In addition to that, we have created a fabrication lab, and I think it's the first in this country. The fabrication lab allows us to fabricate anything you want. And we are working with a lot of non-governmental agencies, especially French Embassy, for instance, are working with us to even develop a mini factory for recycling of plastic waste. So we've entered into a lot of collaboration. With regards to employability, where we place a lot of our premium, we've developed the collective lab, and the collective lab ensures that our graduates on graduation are ready to be employers of labor, not necessarily going to line up in the already long queue of those waiting to be employed. We organize career fairs.
I wanted to ask you, VC, because I see quite a number of vocational, facilities or equipment and all that, machines and all that. And I wanted to ask if you have a plan, to nurture those who have, interest in vocational or entrepreneurial, business to thrive. Because the federal government already has the students' loan scheme, which comes in and to bridge the gap in terms of tuition. But it also has the component parts, that enable students to be gainfully employed after graduation. How gainfully employed, the opportunities.
In fact,
to be
we
employed.
place a lot of premium on employability. And for now, I think Nile University graduates have attained the critical employability ratio we expect of any university. And this is because we train them, we mentor them to ensure that they are industry fit on graduation. Currently, we've entered into collaboration with one of the largest internship company across the world. They are creating an internship hub right inside Nile University, taking the best of our students, giving them payable internship, so that after 6 months, they observe them into the mainstream of their company and send them to companies that they serve across the world.
Fantastic.
So we are deliberate when it comes to employability. And we have currently over 65 partner universities across the world that gives us the opportunity to work and ensure that the quality of graduates we produce here in Nigeria are ready to go into the job market at any time. These are people who are prepared, both mentally, physically, and skilled to deliver on this. And that's why the collective lab, which is supposed to be an entrepreneurship incubation hub, is created so that by the time they graduate, they already know where to go, they already know what to do, and they are skilled to deliver on those ones.
Where exactly is Nile University located, and how conducive is the environment for learning? Because this counts a great deal. And then what about scholarships?
Thank you so much for coming on to that. I think for now, Nile University is one of the institutions that deliberately work to make sure that as part of our corporate social responsibility to provide scholarship to those who are qualified and perhaps may not necessarily have what it takes to be there. And we invest heavily in scholarship. For instance, those who excel in sports are given 100% scholarship, indifferent of what you want to study. Because we believe that if we develop the youth to be good sportsmen and women, they can actually serve the purpose of so many other things through a multiplier effect. So we want to develop the youth so that they are responsive, because they are the future of this country. And beyond that, when it comes to a campus, I think Nile University of Nigeria for now has the best campus situated in Jabi.
Where is it located?
Sorry, just a yes,
Jabi here in Abuja, creating a world-class learning environment with the best. In fact, we are now rated as a green campus. Our chief executive have said that as economic forum, World Economic Forum, that Nile University shall be a green campus. And right now we are a green campus and we are working towards creating the best learning environment.
We are seeing it.
Yeah.
Yes, we are seeing it. But just a final one before we let you go. Certificates are becoming questionable these days.
Yeah.
How what's the quality of the certificates? How do you ensure that these are genuine certificates that you churn out?
In fact, we've brought in technology to ensure that all certificates issued at Nile University are genuine. Incidentally, companies, government in Nigeria now, if they have to issue out employment, they will always want to refer to the institution to, in fact, certify if the certificate is genuine or not. But in Nile University, we have ensured that all those who graduate in Nile University are genuine graduates and ambassadors of Nile University who are skilled and prepared to work anywhere.
All right, Vice Chancellor, University of Nigeria, Professor Dili Dogo, we would like to thank you. I'm told we have some 2-3 more minutes with you.
Prof may not like to make his speech. Why, in spite of all that you have said, if you have to convince me, for instance, to come do a postgraduate program, of course I'll be looking towards the same area of the media. Do you have your
2 point something million
AI stand alone, or is it infused with other programs?
Well, what we try to do is to provide comprehensive education. All the courses in Nile universities are customized to the needs of both industry and society. The curriculum itself is developed in such a way that it's responsive to your needs. And in fact, we provided other courses other than the degree courses. We have certificate courses that are intended and targeted towards industry or those who want self-development or establishment that want to develop their staff. In fact, we've sat down a lot of companies that have peculiar needs, and we have customized their training to meet their needs. And even here in NTA, if NTA can enter into collaboration or cooperation with us so that we can have a staff development program, especially that the Department of Mass Communication offers an array of courses, like I told you. We've gone into television and multimedia. We've gone into broadcasting. So all these are intended to reach out to all those who want quality education, who want mentorship, who want upskilling in their profession to get that. And that's why we put up online education or Nile Online to ensure that even for those of you who are busy in office, you can create time and space to acquire the kind of education you need.
How do you deal with skill, manpower? These days that teachers and lecturers are jackbuying. So,
as an international organization, we make sure that we keep pace with expectations of our teachers. And beyond that, all our teachers are retrained to meet the quality and standards we need to deliver on quality education. For instance, every year, we make sure that our academics are retrained. The non-academic staff are also trained. And all of them are upskilled in creative thinking, problem solving, as well as metaverse, to ensure that they are conversant with developments in technology. And right now, even our method of teaching has moved from traditional teaching to contemporary ways of teaching, including flipped classroom, so that, in fact, these students have access to teaching materials even before they come to class. So that
all right.
I think Victor and I will definitely pay you a visit to see for ourselves, because it's too beautiful. It's too
sounds too good to be true.
Sounds too good to be true. Anyway, Vice Chancellor,
thank you so much.
Vice Chancellor, Nile University of Nigeria, Professor Dili Dogo, thank you once again. We are glad to have you come to share your success story with us.
Thank you so much, and God bless you.
All right, and that's Good Morning Nigeria for today. Again, it's Tuesday. Don't forget, tomorrow is another day, and I'll see you. I am Claire Adilabu Abdulrazak. Bye-bye.
And I am Victor Azo. See you again tomorrow.